Live from St. Elizabeth of Hungary Church in Budapest. Our Holy Father will soon visit this church where he will be meeting especially with the poor and with migrants. This is Pope Francis's 41st apostolic journey. It's his second day, and the Pope has been traveling just 10 kilometers by car after visiting the Blessed Laszlo Institute for the visually impaired and special education children. As he left the institute this morning, Pope Francis also stopped along the way at a nearby parish dedicated to St. Laszlo, where he greeted a group of about 100 young children and young people who were waiting for him. And they sang some songs with him and prayed for him along the way. From wherever you are joining us, I'd like to welcome you to this live broadcast. We know some of you joining us through the various Vatican media channels, the Vatican News app, or the Vatican Radio app, the Vatican News English web portal, YouTube channel, or our Facebook Live feed. To all of you picking up our television broadcast being brought to you by Catholic TV at Madarshan TV, Catholic Faith Network, Shalom World Television Networks, EWTN, Uganda Catholic Television, Salt and Light Media, Shalom TV, and Sunday Shalom. And to those of you who may be tuning in through radio, some of you picking us up through Luminous Radio. We have other shortwave radio listeners out there tuning us in, and other diocesan or local radio channels picking up the broadcast, and we know others are surfing the internet, are finding us that way. So a warm welcome to all of you as the people here have been waiting. There have been performances. We've just heard a live violin performance. Again, our Holy Father coming from a previous event, meeting with the children at the Institute, Blessed Laszlo Institute, founded in 1982 by a woman religious, now serving 72 people who are visually impaired or have other motor disabilities. About 600 people now filling this church, another 800 to 1,000 in the square outside. People from all over the country are here in attendance. Our Holy Father will be greeted by the President of Caritas, Bishop Spanyi, a Hungarian bishop, as well as the pastor of this parish church. Refugees gathered here are from Ukrainian Roma community, from the Ukraine, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, Nigeria, and southern Sudan. We see the President of Caritas in the background, along with those waiting at the door for our Holy Father's arrival. The Church of St. Elizabeth stands in Rose Square, surrounded by a fenced-in public park. We're in the 7th district of Budapest, the city's historic Jewish quarter. The building's construction goes back to 1895, when a high number or growth in the number of Catholic believers in this area created a need for a new parish. The laying of the foundation stone took place in the presence of Emperor Franz Joseph, and the exterior was completed at the end of 1897, with the church being consecrated in 1901. As we see here, the church has 3 naves and a transept, features 2 76-meter high spires and a facade decorated with a rose window, which we see there in the background, Gothic-style rose window. We'll be seeing figures of Our Lady, also St. Stephen and St. Ladislaus. And we see here the brickwork made of yellow colored bricks, but also natural stone. The church, the church is about 1,800 square meters and can accommodate about 2,600 people altogether. During World War II, this area, the square outside, was bombed and the building was gravely damaged. And outside, on the occasion of the 700th anniversary of the death of Saint Elizabeth of Hungary, who was herself distinguished by her service to the poor and needy, a life-size statue was put outside in 1931. The church, after the bombing in World War II, was restored thanks to the foundation for the parish of St. Elizabeth, which was founded in 1982, and thus this church was able to be restored to its previous condition. Now, during this meeting of our Holy Father with the poor and refugees, we will also be hearing testimonies from various people. We'll also be hearing a discourse from our Holy Father, who arrived yesterday here in Hungary. He arrived at Budapest International Airport yesterday. This is his second full day, and he will conclude his visit tomorrow. Now, after this visit here, our Holy Father will also be visiting the Greek Catholic community, which is in a church very nearby here. He'll be walking to that. Later today, he'll be meeting with young people, which is always a part of his. Here we see the life-size statue of Saint Elizabeth of Hungary that was put here in 1931. We see now the Holy Father's car approaching. The church in Hungary, going back to Saint Stephen. He was consecrated the first king of Hungary in the year 1000 after converting to Christianity, and he was canonized by Pope Gregory VII along with his son Emmerich and Bishop Gerard in 1083. They were canonized, and Saint Stephen is the patron of Hungary. He's also known as the Apostolic King. He's recognized with the reorganization of the political structure of the Magyar nomadic people, who had also migrated from Asia in the 9th century. So he united the 39 counties of these Magyar nomadic people into a single kingdom. But he was also well known for his own religious life and laying the foundations of a solid Christian national identity. Our Holy Father now getting out of the car and will soon be entering the church. Many people awaiting him here. This is his second visit to Budapest, but the first time was in an international setting. He closed the International Eucharistic Congress in 2021. Our Holy Father now at the door where he received holy water and blessed the two children who have come to meet him, two poor children. He's now being wheeled in by his nurse. We also saw the president of Caritas Hungary, Bishop Spanyi, here with him. Our Holy Father now motioning for a child to be brought to him. A woman now handing our Holy Father a rose, which he accepts. Another person here with a cross. Here we see also in the front people with the Caritas Hungary jacket on in red. Caritas Hungary, of course, a part of the Caritas Internazionale, or in some parts of the world in English, it's referred to as Catholic Charities Network throughout the world, always on the front lines in providing help to the poorest in various regions of the world. Pope Francis now greeting some of the people on the side of the altar here. Since our Holy Father has begun using the wheelchair about a year ago, he probably does feel much more close, being able to identify with the sick and the disabled, whom he's always paid special attention to in events such as this. And now he's going up the ramp where he will take his place here. And the president of Caritas Hungary now greeting the Holy Father. Holy Father, it is a privileged moment of grace to meet in this church built in honor of St. Elizabeth of Hungary, the patroness of charity, with the poor and afflicted, with those who need the love of others, and with those who support them with Christian charity, embraced here by the love of Christ. Bishop Ottokar Proháska urged the Hungarian people or church to engage responsibly and effectively with the needy as early as the beginning of the 20th century. And in 1931, Caritas was founded and continued its work with great vigor until 1950, when the organization was banned by the communist regime. But the work continued almost clandestinely in parishes until 1991, when Caritas Hungary was officially relaunched. With thousands of volunteers and many professional helpers, this institution assists the elderly and sick, helps needy families and the disabled, does its part to treat drug addicts, helps the homeless, disadvantaged minorities, supports persecuted Christians and refugees, and helps victims of humanitarian disasters. The work is done in parishes through the service of volunteers and in organized professional settings wherever it is needed, including in other parts of the world, where professionals are called to help during humanitarian or natural disasters. The service of charity here in the land of the Virgin Mary is supported by a number of organizations, such as the Hungarian Charity Service of the Order of Malta, various spirituality and community groups, as well as organizations of other faith communities united in ecumenical communion. Please, Holy Father, give your blessing to the work that many who are not all present here, all the work that we're doing in the name of Holy Mother Church. With love and fervent prayer, we ask God's abundant blessing on the successor of Peter, who has come to strengthen his brothers and sisters in faith and in the practice of Christian charity.
Amelyet sokan, még ha nem is lehetnek itt minnyájan, végeznek az Anyaszent Egyház nevében. Szeretettel és buzgó imával kérjük Isten bőséges áldását Szent Péter utódjára, aki eljött, hogy megerősítse testvéreit a hitben és a krisztusi szeretet gyakorlásában. Isten áldja a Szentséges Atyát.
And he ended saying, God bless you, Holy Father. The President of Charity now receiving or exchanging a greeting directly with Pope Francis. And our Holy Father is speaking to him now through an interpreter. And we'll be hearing further testimonies here. The first should be from Brigitta or Bridget Kanalas. She's a mother of a family from the Greek Catholic Church. Even as a child, I suffered many hardships. Together with my brothers and sisters, we were farm laborers. I got married at the age of 17. For a while, everything was fine, but after the birth of our third child, we went into debt. I had to work 2 shifts at work. That's where the problems began with my husband, who started drinking. For years, I supported the family alone. When the situation became intolerable, we took refuge in a house that was almost in ruins. The ceiling in the room was broken and there was no electricity or water. A friend offered to keep my youngest daughter in her house until we could find accommodations, but my husband's relatives reported me for not taking care of my children, and social services wanted to take my daughters away. I was desperate. At the time, I didn't even suspect that there were already people trying to help me. The local Greek Catholic Church rallied around me. I prayed to God to help me find my way. I invoked the Virgin Mary, so that as a mother herself, she would help save my children. And I felt the Lord was with me. I just had to trust him. And lo and behold, in the Greek Catholic school, I was given a new permanent contract with a higher salary. We were offered church property that was not being used and were allowed to move in. I was lovingly supported by the people of the Greek Catholic Church, whom I will never forget. Everything seemed to have been resolved. But my soul was still troubled. I wanted to take revenge on those who had harmed me. I always woke up the same way, angry. Suddenly, my little daughter became ill. It was then that I came to my senses. I cried and asked for forgiveness before the image of Our Lady. Soon after, the father of my children was hospitalized. They had to revive him several times and then induce sleep because he was having convulsions. My eldest daughter cried a lot, even at night, feeling sorry for her father. I used to torment myself, but I was also praying. Finally, on the third day, I went into the church. I asked Our Lady to forgive me for all the wrongs I had done to others and to intercede for the healing of my children's father. The next day I went to the hospital for the first time in a week. He woke without convulsions. He looked at me and said, "Are you here?" From then on, he got better every day. I think that was the moment when I finally reconciled and completely cuddled myself up in the palm of God's hand.
Bocsásson meg nekem minden rosszért, amit másoknak kívántam. S ha úgy gondolja, hogy megérdemlem, hogy lelkiismeret furdalással éljek, akkor vegye el az apjuk életét. De ha úgy gondolja, hogy nem vagyok ennyire rossz ember, akkor hagyja életben, mert a gyerekeinek még szüksége lehet rá. Hazamentem, folytattam az imádkozást. Már hajnalodott, amikor megint ugyanazt éreztem, velem az Úr, és értettem, amit tudtomra akar adni. Másnap bementem a kórházba. Egy hét után akkor ébresztették fel először úgy, hogy nem jött rá roham. Rám nézett és annyit mondott: "Te itt vagy?" Onnantól kezdve minden nap javult az állapota. Azt hiszem, ez volt az a pillanat, amikor teljesen kiengesztelődtem, és Isten tenyerébe simultam.
This has been Brigitta Kanalas, a mother of a family from Mariupol, who has been helped by the Greek Catholic community. These must be her children here. Also being able to greet the Holy Father and receive a rosary from him. Our next testimony is a family who escaped from Ukraine. They will also be singing.
Щиро дякую за те, що дозволили мені поділитися з вашою святістю, історією та нашою вдячністю від імені біженців з України. У травні 2022 року всю ніч вибухали ракети в Дніпропетровську та інші.
Holy Father, thank you so much for allowing me to share with Your Holiness our story and our gratitude on behalf of the refugees of Ukraine. In May 2022, missiles exploded throughout the night. He's from Dnipropetrovsk. And when our family was in danger, we decided to move. My wife, Lyudmila, I have 5 children, Daniel, Maria, Alexandra, Ilya, and Elisabetta. To protect our lives, we thought we had no choice but to leave. We didn't know where we would find a roof over our heads again, but where to go. Once, 46 years ago, I had served as a cook for the soldiers in Hungary, and to that day, I remembered the hospitality and friendliness of the Hungarians. I had even learned a little of the language. I knew that if we escaped, we could go to Hungary, even though Budapest is very far, more than 1,500 kilometers. The trip took several days, and we were very tired. We could take very little with us. When we arrived in Hungary, at first there were good people who cared about us, providing accommodation for our family and gave us the help that we needed. Later, we were taken into the Integration Center of Catholic Charities. We received tangible financial help in the form of vouchers, which was a lifesaver for my family in the early days of poverty, and also gave us encouragement and hope. For us and our children, Hungary was the beginning of a new life, a new possibility. Here we were welcomed and found a new home. Many have suffered and are still suffering from the war. We are very grateful to Your Holiness for speaking out for peace and for standing up for the victims of the war. And we are also grateful for the affection of the Catholic faithful and their prayers that not only help us but strengthen us. My children have a song of thanksgiving for the workers of Caritas Hungary, which we would like to play now to the Holy Father. In this song, our family intends to express the respect for the victims, as well as gratitude for those who help them, as well as our desire for peace and prayer.
Нехай береже усіх нас Господь, мира і злагоди.
God bless us all, peace and harmony. And now we'll hear their song. Looks like the mother may be speaking now.
Nagyon köszönöm, hogy az Ukrajnából menekülők nevében megoszthatom.
A translation is being provided for the Hungarian speakers here because the testimony was provided in Ukrainian.
Rakéták robbantak, és épültek, omlottak össze a házak. Amikor a családunk veszélyt fenyegette, úgy döntöttünk, hogy elköltözünk. Feleségemmel, Ludmilával, 5 gyermekünkkel együtt, Dániellel, Máriával, Alexandrával, Iljával és Elizabetával. És az ő életük védelmébe úgy éreztük, hogy más választásunk nincs, menni kell. Nem tudtuk, mikor lesz újra tető a fejünk felett. És hová menjünk? Egyszer régen, 46 évvel ezelőtt katonaszakácsként szolgáltam Magyarországon. És azóta is él bennem a magyarok vendégszeretete, barátságossága, sőt, egy kicsit meg is tanultam magyarul. Tudtam, hogy ha menekülnünk kell, akkor Magyarországra jövünk. Bár Budapest nagyon messze van, több mint 1500 kilométerre Dnipropetrovszktól. Az út több napig tartott, nagyon fáradtak voltunk, nagyon kevés dolgot tudtunk magunkkal hozni. Amikor megérkeztünk Magyarországra, először is jó emberek nagy gondot fordítottak arra, hogy családunknak szállást biztosítsanak, és megadják a szükséges segítséget. Később a Katolikus Caritas integrációs központjában is szeretettel voltak hozzánk, és befogadtak bennünket. Kézzelfogható anyagi segítséget kaptunk utalvány formájában, ami családom számára életmentő volt, és szegénység első időszakában egyben bátorítást és reményt is adott. Számunkra és gyermekeink számára Magyarország egy új élet kezdete, egy új esélyt jelentett. Így befogadtak bennünket, és új otthonra leltünk. Nagyon sokan szenvedtek már, és szenvednek még most is a háborútól. Nagyon hálásak vagyunk őszentségének, hogy hallatja a hangját a békéért, és kiáll a háború áldozataiért. Valamint hálásak vagyunk a katolikus hívők szeretetéért és imáiért, amik nem csak segítenek, de erősítenek is bennünket. A gyermekeink készültek egy dallal hálából a magyar katolikusok munkatársának, Caritas munkatársainak, amit most szeretnénk eljátszani Szent Atyának is. Ebben a dalban úgy gondoljuk, hogy áldozatok iránti szeretet, segítőknek szóló hála, a béke iránti vágy és az ima egyszerre csendül fel. Isten óvja meg mindnyájunkat, békét és harmóniát kívánunk.
And now we will hear the song that has been prepared by this refugee family from the Ukraine, finding refuge in Hungary, expressing their desire for peace and harmony. And we've heard the Liber Tango by Astor Piazzolla, an Argentinian composer, making Pope Francis feel right at home, I'm sure. Again, they desired to play this family to express respect for the victims of the war in Ukraine, as well as for the gratitude for those who have been helping this family. Now, greeting Pope Francis personally. This is Oleg Yakovlev, his wife Ludmila, and 5 children, Daniel, Maria, Alexandra, Ilya, and Elizaveta. These are the people behind the numbers that we've been hearing about in the war that is still plaguing Ukraine. Our next testimony will be given by a permanent deacon and his wife, Zoltán Kuntsabo and Anna Pataki. Holy Father, our community, the New Jerusalem Catholic community, which turns 25 this year, proclaims the gospel of Jesus Christ to all. That is why, from the very beginning, we have been in contact with the poor and tried to help them in any way we can. But we felt that that was not enough. During the Budapest City Mission in 2007, the Holy Spirit placed in our hearts the thought that we needed a place where we could be together with them every day. And that is how the one-on-one service was born. In Budapest, there are 2,246 people living in shelters or dormitories for the homeless, 436 people living on the street. However, the number of people at risk of becoming homeless is much higher. Among our guests are people without families who have grown up in various situations, people with psychiatric problems, drug addicts, people who've been released from prison. But also there are abandoned mothers and grandmothers raising their children alone, and even some elderly people. Our center serves breakfast and lunch for an average of 150 people. We have facilities to provide baths, to wash clothes, to search for housing and jobs, and to handle their official business. We're the only ones in town who can pay for prescribed medicine for everyone. Our Reach Out to Me program provides long-term assistance. Now his wife, Anna Pataki, now beginning her testimony. In our experience, the main problem of caregiving to homeless is not housing, but the depletion of their inner resources and lack of supportive human relationships. It is Jesus, the living Word, who heals their hearts and relationships because the person is rebuilt starting from within. Anyone who experiences his or her own worth, even for a moment, in the presence of God, can begin a new life with Christ. And in this way, they recover their dignity. This is why we have regular prayers of praise, liturgies, penance services, and Eucharistic adoration. And this is why we also offer sacramental preparation opportunities at the local level. These programs are not mandatory, but are attended in the spirit of openness by our guests. It is a great joy for us to witness the full recovery of a person's life, as happened, for example, in the case of our brothers Julia and Thomas, who are here. Almost half of our staff are former guests of our center who have become true colleagues. Our ministries would not have been possible without the support of our daily prayers as a couple and the support of our 5 children who work together with us. For all this, glory be to God, for we can only witness his action among the poor, whom he loves so much. The testimony of a permanent deacon and his wife to the specific service of charity that we know permanent deacons. This is for what they are ordained for, a beautiful testimony of how they carry out their call to the service of charity as a permanent deacon and his wife. And we now prepare ourselves to hear the discourse our Holy Father has prepared for those meeting here in the Church of St. Elizabeth of Hungary, meeting here with the poor and refugees. Our Holy Father taking the opportunity to get a little bit of a drink before we begin.
Cari fratelli e sorelle, buongiorno.
Dear brothers and sisters, good morning.
Sono felice di essere qui in mezzo a voi. Grazie, Monsignor Antal, per le sue parole di benvenuto e grazie per aver ricordato il generoso servizio che la Chiesa ungherese svolge con i poveri. I poveri e bisognosi, non dimentichiamolo mai, sono al cuore del Vangelo. Gesù infatti è venuto a portare ai poveri il lieto annuncio. Essi allora ci indicano una sfida appassionante, perché la fede che professiamo non sia prigioniera di un culto distante dalla vita e non diventi preda di una sorta di egoismo spirituale, cioè di una spiritualità che mi costruisco a misura della mia tranquillità interiore e della mia soddisfazione. Vera fede invece è quella che scomoda, che rischia, che fa uscire incontro ai poveri e rende capace di parlare con la vita il linguaggio della carità. Come afferma San Paolo, possiamo parlare tante lingue, possedere sapienza e ricchezze, ma se non abbiamo la carità non abbiamo niente e non siamo niente.
Kedves testvéreim, jó napot kívánok!
I'm happy to be here with you. Thank you, Bishop Antal, for your words of welcome and for describing the generous service that the Hungarian Church carries out for and with the poor. Those in need, let us never forget, are at the heart of the gospel, for Jesus came among us to bring glad tidings to the poor. The poor, then, present us with a great challenge. We must refuse to let the faith we profess be imprisoned by a piety removed from life, one that results in a kind of spiritual egotism, a spirituality of my own creation that serves to preserve my own inner tranquility and satisfaction. Genuine faith is challenging. It takes risks. It leads us to encounter the poor and by the witness of our lives to speak the language of charity. As St. Paul tells us, we may speak in many tongues and possess great wisdom and wealth, but if we lack charity, we have nothing and we are nothing.
Ahogy Szent Pál mondja, szólhatunk bár nyelveken, bírhatunk bölcsességgel és gazdagsággal. Ha nincs bennünk szeretet, semmink sincs, és semmik vagyunk.
Il linguaggio della carità è stata la lingua parlata da Santa Elisabetta, verso la quale questo popolo nutre grande devozione e affetto. Arrivando stamani ho visto nella piazza la sua statua con il basamento che la raffigura mentre riceve il cordone dell'ordine francescano e contemporaneamente dona l'acqua per dissetare un povero. È una bella immagine quella della fede. Chi si lega a Dio come fece San Francesco di Assisi, a cui Elisabetta si è ispirata, si apre alla carità verso il povero. Perché se uno dice io amo a Dio e odia il suo fratello, è un bugiardo. Chi infatti non ama il proprio fratello che vede, non può amare Dio che non vede. Santa Elisabetta, figlia di re, era cresciuta nell'agiatezza di una vita di corte, in un ambiente lussuoso, privilegiato. Eppure, toccata e trasformata dall'incontro con Cristo, ben presto sentì un rigetto verso le ricchezze e le vanità del mondo, avvertendo il desiderio di spogliarsi e di prendersi cura di chi ne ha bisogno. Così non solo spesse i suoi averi, ma anche la sua vita a favore degli ultimi, dei lebbrosi, dei malati, fino a curarli personalmente e a portarli sulle proprie spalle. Ecco il linguaggio della carità.
A tevékeny szeretet nyelve. Ezt a nyelvet beszélte
The language of charity. This was the language spoken by Saint Elizabeth, to whom the Hungarian people have great devotion and affection. Upon my arrival this morning, I saw her statue in the square with its base. The statue shows her receiving the cord of the Franciscan order, and at the same time she's giving water to quench a poor man's thirst. This is an eloquent image of faith. Those who bind themselves to God, like Saint Francis of Assisi, who was an inspiration to Saint Elizabeth, become charitable to the poor. 4. If anyone says, I love God, and hates his brother, he is a liar. For he who does not love his brother whom he has seen cannot love God whom he has not seen. That's a quote from the first letter of John. Saint Elizabeth, the daughter of a king, had grown up in the comfort of a life at court, in a luxurious and privileged environment. But once she was touched and transformed by her encounter with Christ, she felt repelled by worldly riches and vanities, and sought to renounce them and to care for those in need. Thus, she not only sold her possessions, but also spent her life serving the poor, the lepers and the sick, to the point of personally caring for them, even carrying them on her own shoulders. This is the language of charity.
Tante privazioni, tante sofferenze, tanto duro lavoro per cercare di andare avanti e di non far mancare il pane ai suoi figli. E nel momento più drammatico il Signore gli è venuto incontro per soccorrerla. Ma l'abbiamo ascoltato dalle sue stesse parole come è intervenuto il Signore? Egli che ascolta il grido di chi è povero, rende giustizia agli oppressi, dà pane agli affamati e rialza chi è caduto. Non arriva quasi mai risolvendo dall'alto i nostri problemi, ma si fa vicino con l'abbraccio della tenerezza, ispirato alla compassione dei fratelli e che se ne accorgono e non restano indifferenti. Brigitta ce lo ha detto, ha potuto sperimentare la vicinanza del Signore grazie alla Chiesa greco-cattolica, a tante persone che si sono prodigate ad aiutarla, incoraggiarla a trovare un lavoro e sostenerla nel bisogno materiale e nel cammino della fede. Questa è la testimonianza che ci è richiesta, la compassione verso tutti, specialmente verso coloro che sono segnati dalla povertà, dalla malattia e dal dolore. Compassione, che vuol dire patire con. Abbiamo bisogno di una Chiesa che parli fluentemente il linguaggio della carità, idioma universale che tutti ascoltano e comprendono, anche i più lontani, anche coloro che non credono.
Brigitta is, akinek köszönöm a vallomását, beszélt nekünk erről. Mennyi megpróbáltatásban
Brigitte spoke to us about this, and I thank her for her testimony. She told us of her many privations, her struggles, and her hard work to get by and to keep her children from going hungry. Then, at the most devastating moment of her life, the Lord came to her aid. And she told us how the Lord intervenes. He who hears the cry of the poor, who secures justice for the oppressed, who gives bread to the hungry and raises up those who are bowed down, almost never intervenes by solving our problems from on high. Rather, he draws near us with the embrace of his tender love, inspiring compassion in our brothers and sisters who take notice and choose not to remain indifferent. As Brigitte mentioned, she was also able to experience the Lord's closeness thanks to the Greek Catholic Church, to so many people who did their best to help her, to encourage her, to help her find a job, and support her in both her material need and her journey of faith. That is the kind of witness we are asked to give, to show compassion toward everyone, especially those who are experiencing poverty, illness, and pain. Compassion, which means to suffer with. We need a church that speaks the language of charity fluently, that universal language which everyone can hear and understand, even those who are the farthest away from us, even those who are not believers.
Mindenki meghal és megért, míg a legtávolabb állók is, még azok is, akik nem hisznek.
E a questo proposito esprimo la mia gratitudine alla Chiesa ungherese per l'impegno profuso nella carità, un impegno capillare. Avete creato una rete che collega tanti operatori pastorali, tanti volontari, le caritas parrocchiali e diocesane, ma anche gruppi di preghiera, comunità di credenti, organizzazioni appartenenti ad altre confessioni, ma unite in quella comunione ecumenica che sgorga proprio della carità. E grazie per come avete accolto, non solo con generosità, ma pure con entusiasmo, tanti profughi provenienti dall'Ucraina. Ho ascoltato con commozione la testimonianza di Oleg e della sua famiglia, il vostro viaggio verso il futuro, un futuro diverso, lontano dagli orrori della guerra. È iniziato in realtà con un viaggio della memoria, perché Oleg ha ricordato la calorosa accoglienza ricevuta in Ungheria anni fa, quando venne a lavorare come cuoco. La memoria di quell'esperienza lo ha incoraggiato a partire con la sua famiglia e venire qui a Budapest, dove ha trovato generosa ospitalità. Il ricordo dell'amore ricevuto riaccende la speranza, incoraggia a intraprendere nuovi percorsi di vita. Anche nel dolore e nella sofferenza, infatti, si ritrova il coraggio di andare avanti quando si è ricevuto il balsamo dell'amore. E questa è la forza che aiuta a credere che non è tutto perduto e che un futuro diverso è possibile. L'amore di Gesù ci dona l'amore che Gesù ci dona e che comanda di vivere contribuisce allora a estirpare dalla società, dalle città e dai luoghi in cui viviamo il male dell'indifferenza. È una peste l'indifferenza, il male dell'egoismo, e riaccende la speranza di un'umanità nuova, più giusta, fraterna, dove tutti possano sentirsi a casa.
And here I wish to express my gratitude to the Church in Hungary for its generous and wide-ranging commitment to charity. You have built up a network that links many pastoral workers, volunteers, parish and diocesan caritas organizations, but also prayer groups, communities of believers, and organizations belonging to other Christian confessions, yet united in the ecumenical fellowship that is born of charity. Thank you, too, for having welcomed, not only with generosity, but also with enthusiasm, so many refugees from Ukraine. I was moved as I listened to the testimony of Oleg and his family. Their journey to the future, a different future, far from the horrors of war, actually began with a journey of memory, because Oleg remembered the warm welcome he received in Hungary years ago when he came to work here as a cook. The memory of that experience encouraged him to take his family and come here to Budapest, where he found generous hospitality. The memory of love received rekindled hope and inspired him to embark upon a new journey in life. Even amid pain and suffering, once we have received the balm of love, we find the courage needed to keep moving forward. We find the strength to believe that all is not lost and that a different future is possible. The love that Jesus gives us and commands us to practice can help to uproot the evils of indifference. Indifference is a plague. To uproot the evils of indifference and selfishness from society, from our cities and the places where we live, and to rekindle hope for a new, more just and fraternal world where everyone can feel at home.
És újra feléleszti a reményt egy új, igazságosabb és testvériesebb emberiségnek, amelyben mindenki otthon érezheti magát.
Tante persone purtroppo anche qui sono letteralmente senza casa. Molte sorelle e fratelli segnati dalla fragilità, soli con vari disagi fisici e mentali, distrutti dal veleno della droga, usciti di prigione o abbandonati perché anziani, sono colpiti da gravi forme di povertà materiali. Anche di povertà culturale e spirituale, e non hanno un tetto o una casa da abitare. Zoltan e sua moglie Anna ci hanno offerto la loro testimonianza su questa grande piaga. Grazie per le vostre parole e grazie per aver accolto quella mozione dello Spirito Santo che vi ha portato con coraggio e con generosità a costruire un centro per accogliere persone senza fissa dimora. Mi ha colpito sentire che insieme ai bisogni materiali prestate attenzione alla storia e alla dignità ferita dalle persone, prendendovi cura della loro solitudine, della loro fatica di sentirsi amate e benvenute al mondo. Anna ci ha detto che è Gesù, la parola vivente, che guarisce il loro cuore e le loro relazioni, perché la persona si ricostruisce dall'interno, cioè rinasce, cioè quando sperimenta che agli occhi di Dio è amata e benedetta. E questo vale per tutta la Chiesa. Non basta dare il pane che sfama allo stomaco, c'è bisogno di nutrire il cuore delle persone. La carità non è una semplice assistenza materiale e sociale, ma si preoccupa della persona intera e desidera rimetterla in piedi con amore, con l'amore di Gesù, un amore che aiuta a riacquistare bellezza e dignità. Fare la carità significa avere il coraggio di guardare agli occhi. Tu non puoi aiutare un altro guardando da un'altra parte. Per fare la carità ci vuole il coraggio di toccare. Tu non puoi buttare le elemosine a distanza senza toccare e guardare. E così tu, toccando, guardando, incomincia un cammino con quella persona bisognosa che ti farà capire quanto bisognoso, quanta bisognosa sei tu dello sguardo e della mano del Signore.
Sokan itt sajnos hajléktalanok a szószoros értelemben is. Sok kiszolgáltatott.
Sadly, many people even here are literally homeless. Many of our more vulnerable brothers and sisters, living alone, struggling with various physical and mental disabilities, devastated by the poison of drugs, released from prison or abandoned because they are elderly, are experiencing severe material, cultural, and spiritual poverty. They have no roof over their heads and no home in which to live. Zoltan and his wife Anna offered us their testimony about this immense problem. Thank you for your words. Thank you, too, for responding to the prompting of the Holy Spirit, which led you with courage and generosity to build a center to take in the homeless. I was moved to hear that, together with their material needs, you are attentive to their personal stories and their wounded dignity. caring for them in their loneliness and their struggle to feel loved and welcomed in the world. Anna told us that Jesus, the living Word, heals their hearts and relationships because people are rebuilt from within. Once they realize that in God's eyes they are beloved and blessed, they are reborn. This is a lesson for the whole church. It is not enough to provide bread to fill stomachs. We need to fill people's hearts. Charity is much more than material and social assistance. It has to do with the whole person. It strives to put people back on their feet with the love of Jesus, a love that helps them to recover their beauty and their dignity. Having charity means having the charity to look at someone in the eyes, to touch them, not to just throw alms at someone. To touch and to look at someone, you begin a journey with that needy person who will allow you to know how needy you are for the Lord's hands.
Valamit adjunk a szegényeknek, alamizsnát osszunk, hanem nagyon fontos megérinteni fizikailag azt az embert. És így egy nagyon szép együtt útonjárás kezdődik, és igazából ez az egyháznak is az értelme, ez minden keresztény embernek a hivatása, szeretni, de fizikailag is megérinteni azt az embert, aki éppen rászorul.
Fratelli e sorelle, incoraggio a parlare sempre il linguaggio della carità. La statua in questa piazza raffigura il miracolo più famoso di Santa Elisabetta. Si racconta che il Signore una volta trasformò in rose il pane che portava ai bisognosi. E così anche per voi, quando vi impegnate a portare il pane agli affamati, il Signore fa fiorire la gioia e profuma la vostra esistenza con l'amore che donate. Fratelli e sorelle, vi auguro di portare sempre il profumo della carità nella Chiesa e nel vostro Paese e vi chiedo per favore di continuare a pregare per me.
Brothers and sisters, I encourage you always to speak the language of charity. The statue in this square represents the most famous miracle of Saint Elizabeth. We are told that the Lord once turned the loaves of bread she was carrying to the needy into so many roses. This is also the case for you whenever you strive to offer bread to the hungry. The Lord makes joy blossom within you and infuses your life with the fragrance of the gift of love that you give. My hope and prayer, then, is that you will always spread the fragrance of charity in the church and in your country. And I ask you please to continue to pray for me. Other members of Caritas Hungary here. We also see members of the Missionaries of Charity. And our Holy Father now being vested in the stole so that we can pray the Lord's Prayer together, and then we'll receive his apostolic blessing.
Most pedig, kedves testvérek, imádkozzuk el a mi atyánkot. Mi atyánk, aki a mennyekben vagy.
Domino Hoviscum, Sit nomen Domini benedictum, aiutorium nostrum in nomine Domini, benedicat vos omnipotens Deus, Pater, et Filius, et Spiritus Sanctus. Amen.
And the final song that will be played here from the information we've been given will be performed by a Roma group.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. It's very kind of you. Thank you. That's sweet.
Our Holy Father received a gift and gave a rosary to one of the people here on the altar. And those of us who have been watching have also had the benefit of seeing the costumes, traditional dress, worn by the members of this Roma community who have provided this song for Pope Francis.
Szívem ajtaján kívül nincs kilincs, csak rajtad áll a nagy találkozás. Ó, halld meg hangom, és válaszol, nyisd meg szíved ajtaját. Ó, halld meg hangom, és válaszol,
as we hear the songs, our Holy Father has also been receiving guests here, greeting them, receiving gifts from them, and also giving them the customary rosary in return.
Sok mindent elérhetsz, mégis üres maradhat a szív. Ha nincs benne igazi érték, mely mindenen átsegít. Az élet néha bonyolult, nem is mindig értem én. De kell, hogy a szívben ott legyen a hit, szeretet, s remény. E három dolog közül legnagyobb a szeretet. Egy mindent elhordoz, ha kell, sok vétket elfedez. A szeretet nem fogy el sosem, a szeretet átvisz az életem, minden elvisz és remél. A szeretet minden még többet ér, a szeretet nem fogy el sosem, a szeretet átvisz az életem, minden elvisz és remél. A szeretet mindennél többet ér. Mert senki nem tud úgy szeretni, ahogy az Úr szeret. Ha elhagynak mindenki, ő megmarad neked. Mert nem tud nem szeretni, hiszen ő a szeretet. Mely mindent elhordoz, ha kell, sok vétket elfedez. A szeretet nem fogy el sosem, a szeretet átvisz az életem, minden elvisz és remél. A szeretet mindennél többet ér, a szeretet nem fogy el sosem, a szeretet átvisz az életem, minden elvisz és remél. A szeretet mindennél többet ér, a szeretet nem fogy el sosem, a szeretet átvisz az életem, minden elvisz és remél. A szeretet mindennél többet ér, többet ér.
Our Holy Father giving the thumbs up to the choir as they end their performance here. And as this meeting of Pope Francis with the poor and refugees here in the Church of St. Elizabeth of Hungary draws to a close, they bring his wheelchair forward.
Erőt adsz minden helyzetben, te vagy a kincsem, életem, te vagy a mindenem. Felemhez, hogyha elbukom, szentlegetetőt jól tudom, te vagy a mindenem.
And our Holy Father now going back into the sacristy. We now bring this live broadcast of the Holy Father's visit to the poor and refugees here in St. Elizabeth of Hungary Church to a close. He'll be going to the nearby Church of the Protection of the Mother of God, where we will pick up our live broadcast in about a half hour, so you may want to stay tuned for that. I also invite you to visit the Vatican News web portal, our Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter accounts. There you'll also find coverage of all of Pope Francis's events on this 41st apostolic journey to Hungary. On behalf of Vatican Media, I'd like to thank our audio technician, Patrizio Ciprari, and our audio coordinator, Father Johan Pacheco, and all of our media partners who've made this broadcast possible: Catholic TV, at Madarshan TV, Catholic Faith Network, Shalom World Television Networks, EWTN, Uganda Catholic Television, Salt and Light Media, Shalom TV, and Sunday Shalom, and Luminous Radio. Laudetur Jesus Christus. Praised be Jesus Christ.
grazie. Mille grazie.
Laudetur Jesus Christus. Praised be Jesus Christ, and a most warm welcome to those of you joining us for this third and final event of the Pope's second morning here in Budapest. Our Holy Father just finished a visit with the poor and refugees at nearby St. Elizabeth of Hungary Church. He walked 50 meters to the Greek Catholic Church called Protection of the Mother of God, where he will meet with the Greek Catholic community. For those of you joining us now, I'd like to take this moment to welcome all of you tuning in to our live coverage of Pope Francis's 41st Apostolic Journey. From wherever you're joining us, I'd like to welcome those of you who may be tuning in through our own Vatican media channels, to all of you picking us up through television, through Catholic TV at Madarshan TV, Catholic Faith Network, Shalom World Television Networks, EWTN, Uganda Catholic Television, Salt and Light Media, Shalom TV and Sunday Shalom. To our radio listeners tuning in through Luminous Radio, welcome to you, as well as anyone who may be picking up our shortwave radio broadcast, and any other diocesan and local radio channels picking up the broadcast. Our Holy Father has been welcomed by the Greek Catholic Metropolitan Peter Philip Koshis. We'll be hearing a brief greeting from the same bishop. There'll be a moment of prayer and the blessing.
Mindnyájunk által szeretett Ferenc pápa, Szent Mártonik János Pál pápától tanultuk.
The greeting of the Metropolitan Archbishop. His Holiness Pope Francis, beloved by all of us. From Pope John Paul II, we learned the important truth that the Church of Christ breathes with two lungs, the spirit of the East and the spirit of the West, which together make up the mystical body that we live. This poetic and theological image is manifested in a special way right here in this square. Two churches stand next to each other, two communities, one of the Latin Rite, the other of the Byzantine Rite, living together in the same place. For us Greek Catholics, belonging to the Catholic Church is particularly important. Since our birth, since our first unions, we have had to suffer a lot because of this dual membership. Our martyrs died not only for their Christian faith, but above all for their fidelity to the Catholic Church. Instead of bowing to the dictates of communist violence, they remained faithful to the Catholic Church, and for that they died. Therefore, no one can doubt that, while trying to remain faithful to our Eastern roots, we do not wish to separate, but intend to become a bridge between the two sister churches, since, in a sense, we belong to both. With your visit today, we have a strong confirmation that we are equal members of the Catholic family, and we promise to be committed to bringing a message of unity and fraternity to all. We ask Your Holiness to accept from us this simple and symbolic gift, the Rosary of the Eastern Church, which has been made on this occasion by Greek Catholic youth and will be presented by Your Holiness by children.
Építői leszünk. Ezt mindenekelőtt buzgó imádságunkkal szeretnénk munkálni. Ezt tartjuk legfőbb kötelességünknek és lehetőségünknek. Ezzel tudjuk éltetni a titokzatos testet. Kérjük, fogadj el tőlünk ezt az egyszerű jelképes ajándékot, a keleti egyház rózsafűzérét, a csotkit.
And here the children come forward now.
Mindnyájunk üzenetét kifejezve ezzel, hogy gyermeki hittel fogjuk szeretni Krisztus Urunkat, az ő egyházát és földi helytartóját, János Pál pápát. Ferenc pápát.
Our Holy Father, accepting this gift of although we use the term rosary, it is a knotted cord on which prayers are said. Most likely the Jesus prayer repetition. Our Holy Father now giving a rosary to the children who have come forward with this gift, and the Metropolitan Archbishop of the Greek Catholics here ended his greeting with, "This is the message all of us who love with filial faith our Lord Jesus Christ wish to give the Church and its earthly head, Pope Francis." And they're going to be singing a hymn of peace, which will be followed by the Lord have mercy, the Kyrie eleison.
Félelemmel járnak, könyörögjünk az Úrhoz.
Ferenc római pápáért, Isten szerető Fülöp metropolitánért, Szilárd, Atanáz és Ábel püspökeinkért, a tisztes áldozó papságért, a Krisztus szerinti segítő papságért, az egész egyházi rendért és a népért könyörögjünk az Úrhoz. Szeretett magyar hazánkért, országunk vezetőjét és népünkért könyörögjünk az Úrhoz. Ezen városért, minden városért, községért és vidékért, s az azokban lakó hívekért könyörögjünk az Úrhoz. A levegőnek kedvező mérsékletéért, a föld terményeinek bőségéért és békességes időkért könyörögjünk az Úrhoz. A hajózókért, utazókért, betegekért, fáradozókért, foglyokért, s ezek szabadulásáért könyörögjünk az Úrhoz. Hogy mentsen meg minket minden aggódástól, haragtól és szükségtől, könyörögjünk az Úrhoz. Oltalmazz, ments meg, könyörülj és őrizd meg minket, Isten, a te kegyelmeddel. Legszentebb, legtisztább, legáldottabb dicső királynénkat, az Isten szülő és mindenkor Szűz Máriát minden szentekkel együtt említvén, önmagunkat, egymást, s egész életünket Krisztus Istenünknek ajánljuk. Mert téged illet minden dicsőség, tisztelet és imádás, Atya és Fiú és Szentlélek, most és mindenkor és örökkön örökké.
And the Metropolitan Archbishop Peter Fulop Koshi is now investing the Holy Father with a stole.
Descenda super vos, Deus gratiae et amore, in omni tempore, nunc et semper, et in saecula saeculorum. Amen.
And invoking his blessing on those here. And they're going to be presenting a gift that comes from the parish. Some members coming forward from the congregation.
Questo il vino è la stessa epoca che e la carta 1900.
And our Holy Father giving the gift of a rosary to those who've come forward with the gifts from the parish. And he's wearing on his own wrist now the Eastern rosary, quote unquote, the chotki, which he received, now handing that back. And he will be presenting the gift. He will be leaving here, a customary chalice, which the Metropolitan Archbishop kisses. This eparchy, arch-eparchy for the Catholics of the Byzantine Rite was established in 1912 and extended to all of Hungary in 1980 and became a metropolitan see in 2015. It serves 149,000 Catholics in 56 parishes. They have 94 priests, 5 of whom were ordained last year. 9 permanent deacons. They have 13 seminarians studying in philosophy and theology. The Greek Catholic Church here in Hungary manages 23 educational institutions, scholastic institutions, and 2 charitable institutions. And last year they baptized 378 people. We've gone outside the church now with our cameras. You can see people beginning to exit here. The eparchy now has 2 suffragan. This arch-eparchy has 2 suffragan eparchies for the faithful of the Byzantine Rite, and they too belong to the Episcopal Conference of Hungary. The door leading into the church, like a bower of flowers surrounding it. The Metropolitan now outside the door as our Holy Father is now seen emerging from the church. And we leave you now with these images as our Holy Father finishes his visit to the Greek Catholic Church, a church with the name Protection of the Mother of God, serving our brothers and sisters of the Greek Catholic community of the Byzantine Rite here in Budapest. Pope Francis will now go by car to the Apostolic Nunciature, where he will dine in private. And later today at 4:30 local time, that's Central European time, he will meet with young people in the sports arena in Budapest. So we invite you back to our live coverage, which returns at about 4:30 local time, Central European time. I also invite you to visit the Vatican News web portal, our Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter accounts. You'll find ongoing coverage of all of Pope Francis's events on this 41st Apostolic Journey to Hungary, as well as coverage of other Vatican and world news. On behalf of Vatican Media, I'd like to thank our audio technician, Patrizio Ciprari, and our coordinator, Father Johan Pacheco, who've made this broadcast possible, as well as to all of our media partners who've brought this broadcast to you: Catholic TV, Catholic Faith Network at Madarshan TV, Shalom World Television Networks, EWTN, Uganda Catholic Television, Salt and Light Media, Shalom TV, Sunday Shalom, and Luminous Radio. We hope you tune in soon, later today, 4:30, to continue our Holy Father's apostolic visit to Hungary. Laudetur Jesus Christus. Praised be Jesus Christ.